serious as a country and fix our security. We cannot keep relying on foreigners to come to our country to help us anytime we have a problem. We have to, but that starts with us as the citizens. If we
He was the editor of the Fatunetwork and the Standard newspaper. Lamin Njie has since moved to the Big Apple where he is working. In this special conversation, Lamin Njie talks about some of the latest topics in the country. But Njie is worried about the antics of Jammeh and his supporters.
So here's the point. Well, here's the issue that I had with that. For somebody that's been in power for 22 years and he was removed from office through election, of course, and all the people that are calling for Jammeh's return to power, they are not telling us how he is going to achieve that. They're not telling us, a lot of them, what they are saying is that Jammeh gotta come back and Jammeh gotta be president, but they don't tell you how is that going to even be possible, humanly possible. So and also this is happening side by side.
So what do you think? So what does that tell you before you go further?
What it tells me is that these are people that are planning to take the government by force. And let's hear me out here. You have, this is coming side by side with former President Yahya Jammeh making statements threatening the current president to say, I am coming back by force. They can be Marco Mom. I own this country. I am coming back by force and I'm going to take back the country. How is he going to do that? If you have those statements coming from a former leader, then there's a problem. And you have not just that, you have people that deserted. You were never removed from the military. You left on your own, you ran away. And you have them sitting in places saying that we're just waiting for the time to come. What does that mean? They're planning, they're up to something. And this is why the government needs to be serious. The government can, because this is what has happened all throughout our country. It is a very sad one. Our story. If you look at our story, since Jawara became president in 1965, just 5 years, I mean, he fell out with his vice president. As soon as that happened, this fierce competition for the soul of the country began. You have Sirif Dua versus Jawara. And what happened is, in 1981, you have people that really had all this extremist mindset come to the country, and at that time we did not even take security seriously. We didn't have a serious proper army, serious proper military. What happened? Kuko just came a civilian. And there is two things that a lot of people are confusing: serving your country or the working for the state as working for the president. When you are in the military, you don't work for the president. He can be your commander-in-chief, but you don't work for him. You work for the country. If the commander-in-chief tells you to go and do something that is illegal, you have a right to refuse. You have a right to.
Are you talking from a security point of view, or are you?
I'm talking about this is not even. I mean, you don't need to be a specialist. You don't need to be a security expert to be able to say these things. Here in America, for example, when the chief of staff, Mark Milley, was asked by Trump to go take over the government, he told him, "I have no business to do with that." Trump was complaining that he did not lose the election. He was cheated out of his victory. But what happened? He wanted the military to take over. The military told him, that's not our problem. We don't do that. It was completely illegal. So if you have our military, because for them, they think that serving or preserving Jammeh in power is what is serving your country. That has nothing to do with serving your country. You leave that to the people. When people go to the polls, they vote. Yes, if coups happen, for example, if people want to violently overthrow the government, you can stop that. But what you do is you do it the right way. That is what is called due process. If you get people, because Jammeh came to power illegally. He came to power illegally. What he did was treason. But he got away with it. It doesn't mean that others also have to overthrow him. It don't mean like that. It doesn't work like that. But if people also try to overthrow Yahya Jammeh, that is what is called due process. If you don't follow due process, then you are breaking the law. Then you are not doing what is right. You cannot call that serving my country. You cannot go about massacring people, shooting people, having junglers, killing people, and you call that serving my country. Any suspicion? You remember the migrant massacre of 2005, July 22nd? Yeah, Jammeh was about to address the crowd for the anniversary, and you have an aide walk up to him and whisper in his ears that we got mercenaries in our country. Before anything, before they could even investigate to know whether these are people that came to overthrow him or not, they killed all of them. That is not serving your country. That is not how you serve your country. You serve your country, but you do what is called due process. You do it the legal right way. That is what you do. Right? So if you have people that are still aggrieved, that think Jammeh did not lose the election, run away, flee the country, sitting in places saying that, oh, Jammeh is going to come back. How is he? You are not telling us how is he going to come back. And Jammeh also putting out statements to say, I am coming back, I am taking the country. Jammeh should have told, he should have been able to tell us how he's going to do that. Is it through elections that you're going to come back and be president again? You should be able to tell us. But this is the time for us to address our security. For me, that's what I think is most pertinent. Because it is a time bomb that we are playing with. It happened in 1981. Jawara, where the Senegalese came, they died. They ensured that Jawara was put back in office, But what happened? Still, our security was not fixed. That arrangement, that confederation broke apart and it ended. And what happened? He went out again to look for people to help us with our security. Nigerians came, but they didn't care. They are not going to die for anybody. That is when the time came and this coup launched, they completely ignored everything. They stayed away and then let whatever is going to happen. Yes, of course, when Jammeh came, he knew clearly that this is something that is a problem. And he tried to put a stop to that by making sure that he filled his inner circle with loyalists. People that are loyal can crush any attempt at removing him from office. But that is not serving your country. What you do, I was there when Jammeh was in power, and I have seen how our security acted and behaved. That was not serving your country. What is serving your country is to serve the people, to stand by the people, and to not to do anything that is illegal, that is unacceptable. That is what is serving country as a service member. So all the service members, including those that have left the service, this is out. But I know some of them, the orientation is where they misunderstood everything. When they were being oriented, when they were being trained, they were trained this way, that protecting the head of state is serving the country. You know what protecting the head of state is? Protecting the head of state is that no harm comes to him. Of course, if people try to attack the head of state, if people try to kill the head of state, as our security, that is your responsibility to make sure that nothing happens to him, right? But if there are people that are found guilty of trying to bring harm to the president, there is a way to go about that, and that is what you call due process. There is not this issue of torturing people, extrajudicial killing, summarily executing people. Those are things that you don't do. If you do, and just yesterday we are talking, we are having this conversation at a time when one of the junglers,
yes, that is going to be the final installment of our interview. Michael Sankoria has been sentenced to 67.5, 67.5 years in prison. This is unprecedented in the history of the Gambia since the formation of the Gambia Armed Forces or the Field Force. Never a soldier, a serving member of the Gambia Armed Forces outside the country undergone this kind of justice. What does it tell you as a Gambian, as a native Gambian? And
what it tells me,
the fact
what it tells me is
we
that
were around during Jammeh's time, and then we understood, or we are now trying to understand what the junglers were doing.
What it tells me is that there's a price to pay for your actions. And it doesn't matter or count where you are at. If you commit a crime in the Gambia, I can assure you wherever you go to, it can catch up with you, right? So and also what it also, because there was a defense that was put forward by Michael Sam Korea and all the people that were doing these terrible things. I was following orders. But what orders were you following? It's something
you
that
have a chance to listen to the sentencing last evening.
I didn't get a chance. I was at work yesterday, but whatever the evidence, what is clear is that he has been convicted of the crimes of torture, and a lot of people, people that testified, the witnesses that testified in the Bunja Dabos, Yaya Dabo, sorry, them, and all the others that testified. I was there when those people were arrested, and they were charged for treason and trying to overthrow Yaya Jammeh. Some of the things that they went through. Then probably we don't know the names and the people that were the perpetrators that were doing these terrible, terrible things. But we were in the newsroom and we heard and we knew what some of these people, what was done to some of these people. So if those people come to a court, before they appear before a court of law and say, okay, as witnesses, and say, okay, this is what this man did to me, and the man himself admit that he did those things, then that is unfortunate. That is unfortunate. But this should serve as a lesson to all those people that are hiding behind, I was working for my country, I was serving my state, you serve your state, but you do it the right way. If you don't do it the right way, you could end up like Michael Sam Korea. And that is what happened. And it's not just Michael Sam Korea. We've seen by law, he's been put away. We've seen Usman Sonko, he's been put away. I mean, never to come out again. Even if you're going to come out, when are you going to come out? By then, you would have been too old to even know what is going on, going around you. So people need to be careful, and people need to resist being used by a system. If you see that this system is bad, is rotten, you have a right to protect yourself, to make sure that you don't fall prey. Of course, I mean, you could act all jambar, man jambar la, man dama train, as your friend Nyakare would say, I'm a highly trained soldier. Of course, you can be a highly trained soldier. Nobody even wants to know if you are trained or not.
Do you have personal problems with Nyakare?
I don't have any problem with that, but I know he's your good friend, and he trusts him in his fighting skills a lot. He thinks he's yes. But what I'm saying is that, and this issue of and for Nyakare, I see him contradicting himself. He said even Adam Barrow, if somebody wants to do something to him, to overthrow him, he's ready to put his life down, right? But now you are talking about somebody that has been removed from power, that nobody knows, only God knows if he's even going to come back to Gambia or not, saying that he's going to come back to Gambia. He needs to come back and be president. I think you are contradicting yourself here. What you are trying to do is, right now, your focus should be the one that is in power, to protect that person. When I say protecting that person, it's not to perpetuate him. You leave that to Gambians, to perpetuate somebody in power. That is not serving your country. That is not your responsibility as a military officer, as a security agent. What is your security agent? Your immediate responsibility and duty is to make sure that no harm comes to him. That's all that where your responsibility and duty stops. Everything else, you leave that to the plebiscite. You leave that to the electorate. They decide that whether they want the president to be in power 100 years, 20 years. They want. When Jammeh was doing his nomination in 2016, I was there, and I see the behavior of our security officers. I was like, and we spent the whole entire day and night at the IEC. And but as soon as the election came out, and I looked at those security agents who were who were who were acting in ways that was really terrible. I said to myself, so what are you going to do now? The people have decided otherwise. What are you going to do now? So in as much as you kill people, you suppress people, you use torture, all these extra judicial killings to try to suppress a citizens, to try to suppress a state, they're always going to rise. They're always going to rise. And if they rise, usually it doesn't end well. History will tell you, but humans, they learn history poorly. That has always been the problem. Even if somebody does something bad here, Michael Sankoria is put away 67 years. It will not stop somebody from doing something that Michael Sankoria did just yesterday. Tomorrow you will see somebody trying to do the same thing. That is, I think that is in the habit of the human being. Humans don't learn. In as much as misfortune would befall them, they will still continue to engage in terrible behavior. So for people like Nyakare, I don't have anything against him, but I think they need to see reason. They need to reason and understand that it's all over for Yahya Jammeh. There is no way that Yahya Jammeh has no path back to the presidency. What Yahya Jammeh can do, he can also be a normal citizen like everybody else. That is where it stops for him. But for him to try to cause strife in that country.
But what about contesting elections, participating in elections as a president?
I mean, even if Yahya, in my view, even if Yahya contests in an election, he's not going to win. That is what I believe, because Gambians have rejected him already. They have rejected him. There is very slim chance of him coming back to the president through elections. The only way Yahya can do it, and Yahya is not talking about that. If Yahya wants to contest an election, he should say it. He should say, "Hey, look, I want to contest election. That is my path back to the state house." But he's telling people that, okay, wait for me, or he's telling the current president, wait for me, I'm coming. Red carpet, if I come, we will know I'm going to take back my country. We will know who owns Gambia. That is not true election. That is not an election. That is not true democratic meme. That's an undemocratic, and you have people supporting him in that. I think that is treason. And it's high time that the government takes these issues seriously. If you don't take these issues seriously, the Senegalese are not going to stay in our country forever. I mean, what if ECOWAS decides to say, okay, it's enough. We with this mission, we are going to be left on our own, and anything can happen in that country. Anything can happen in that country. I mean, these moving people from here, promoting people, giving them training, that's not the way to reform a security. Reforming the security has to do with the mindset, how they are thinking. A lot of our military, they have a corrupted mindset. Their mind is corrupt. The mindset they have is corrupt. And also, you also have to understand that it has been 22 years that this military, they were used to being pampered by former President Jammeh. Jammeh gave them all the privileges. He took care of them. He made sure that they are happy in terms of what is due them. They respected him. They believed in him. He was able to mobilize them, to rally them around him. So you need to be able to do that, even though Yahya Jammeh had his.
So that is a critic. That is something. That's a weakness for Barrow. If he is not doing that, then
exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I know they pretend the military is there is one thing called discipline in that. Even people are not happy, they are not allowed to express it. You know, you have few military people who would come out and say, oh, even uniforms, we don't have it, right? We don't have uniforms, we don't have food. I mean, Yahya Jammeh made sure that they don't go hungry. I remember the first time that I went to Kanilai. I was a young reporter back then, and then they gave me an assignment to cover a cabinet retreat in Kanilai. When when you get into it's layered. Yahya Jammeh's compound is layered. You have a fence upon fence upon fence. When I get in there, the first thing that I see was a lot of meat. It was a lot of barbecue going on. So they ate to their full, their satisfaction. These people, that was what they were used to. Yeah, Jammeh was making sure that the people, they got good uniforms and they got good weapons. And the military, they believe in their tools. They take their tools very seriously. You give them even a good gun, you give it to a soldier, he's happy, right? Because he thinks he has that, he exudes that force and that power, and that identity of being a soldier. But if you have an army that is demoralized, an army that is not motivated enough, that is a recipe for disaster, as has happened in 1994. Jawara never cared about the army. He thinks that, oh, I can have outsiders, they will help me solve my security problems. He was mistaken, and he was toppled, he was overthrown.
But right? but Lamin, if you say during Jammeh's time, like he pampered them, but there were so many series of counters, coup attempts, by the same army that you are now, saying that he pampered them. So you think, for instance, pampering them by giving them uniform, by giving them enough food, meat, or maybe barbecue, you think that can stop them from staging coups?
That would not stop them from staging coups, but what that does is that it puts you in charge. It puts you in charge. It gives you greater power and greater popularity. You cannot be popular among the military 100%. There would always be those that are aggrieved. There would also be those pockets of service members that really do not, whatever you do for them, they're not going to be happy about the way you are running things. And also, one thing also that also happened while Yahya Jammeh was president, commander-in-chief, was that he introduced this divide and rule system in the military. You have the regular military that was removed, that was outside of the elite military, if you like. The elite military that was close to him, that was in charge of his own security, was different from the regular army. That was what the reason why he did that was all these attempts at his government trying to remove him. Probably that was his mindset, because this started way back in 1994 itself, when you have a counter group trying to take over power. But when that happened, problems, all the mistrust began in his own inner circle. People were arrested, people were jailed, people were killed. And also it got to a point, and in the early 2000s, you had Yahya Jammeh's close protection team. A lot of them were from were people that were not even from his own people that he trusts the most. But what happened? All of them were killed. They died because they thought that those are people that were always going to remove him from power. But when that happened, and that has always been the trend, that has always been, you look at the region, our region, it's a lot of the leaders that act like that. They always have this in their mindset that people that are from my tribe are the people that are always going to protect me, that would be completely ready to die for me. So they will bring that in their inner circle. These are the people that will be in immediate charge of their security. And when that happens, you have all these people that feel like they are not from your group or your tribe. Those are the people. And if you look at all the coups that happen, all the coups that happen were people, majority of them were people that were not from Yahya Jammeh's own tribe, right? And Yahya Jammeh himself, at the tail end of his rule, would say, okay, since 1996 or 1994, because December 30th Arab was led by, supposedly, by a Mandinka. There was no member of that group that was from his own tribe. So that was a problem. By the time Yahya Jammeh left power, his most trusted military officer was from his own people, was from his own tribe. So people do that.
Well, Lamin, here, December 30th is actually shrouded in mystery. From the testimonies we had openly, that is at the TRRC, it was a mission that failed. But the guys who, when the plan was hatched, according to the testimonies or according to what we heard, is that it was supposed to be something like a done deal. So I think that was some disappointment along the way and some backstabbing.
Absolutely. That was backstabbing. But you also have to understand that it's a very
delicate thing.
It's a very delicate and tricky. The issue of trying to overthrow a government is very delicate.
In the second part of our conversation, Lamin Njie reflects on his back and forth fights with some members of the opposition UDP, even likening some of them to the Sudanese militia group called the Janjaweed. We will be back with that interview in our second installment.